People are still finding their way to you, Judith.
Yeah, people are still arriving, but I think we've ironed out the kinks of getting people into this room. Well, I'm going to begin introducing the two of you because it'll take a minute to do that. I'm thrilled to get to welcome folks to this session taught by two people that I consider my teachers as well as my colleagues. So let me tell you a little bit about each of them. Kohenet Ruach D'vorah Grenn, Ph.D., is an educator, writer, and mashpi'ah. She founded the Lilith Institute in 1997. She's co-directed the Women's Spirituality MA program at Sofia University. She's taught Humanities and Philosophy at Napa Valley College, served on the founding advisory board of the Kohenet Priestess Institute, and co-hosted 50 episodes of Tending Lilith's Fire with Kohenet Annie Matan. Her publications include Tending Lilith's Fire. Include Lilith's Fire, Talking to the Goddess, Sacred Writings from 72 Women of 25 Traditions, Jewish Priestesses and Lilith Entries of the Encyclopedia of Women in World Religions. And my friend rabbinic pastor Judith Goleman, MFT, is a chaplain and also has a private practice in individual and couple counseling. As a teenager, she fell in love with the joyous tales of the Hasidic rabbis of the 18th century, who saw God as the deep nature of everything in creation, including us in our true potential. As an adult, she encountered this spirit in the Jewish renewal movement and was lucky to study for her ordination as a rabbinic pastor in this spiritual approach. It also informs her psychotherapy practice. I turn it over to the two of you with great joy and anticipation.
Thank you so much.
We're very honored to co-teach.
We are delighted to teach together, and thank you, Reb Irwin. I'm starting with a chant written by Rabbi Nadia Gross from the Song of Songs that says, "Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet and your appearance lovely." And it seemed like a good choice for this evening. Hashmini et kolech, ki kolech arev umarech nave. Hashmini et kolech, ki kolech arev umarech nave. Hashmini, Hashmini, Hashmini et kolech. Revelation comes not only from Atzilut, the spiritual realm, but also from Asiyah, the earthly plane, through each of us. On this night, when we celebrate divine revelation, Rabbi Irwin asked us to look at our own revelations and Torah as well. How can revelations from our own embodied experiences be expressed? How can we recognize our own Torah? And how are we being called to transmit and manifest it in the world for the good of our communities? We can't figure that out until we trust ourselves to accept what our minds, spirits, and bodies intuitively know. So often we ignore or reject our intuition, our own knowing, as unimportant, untrained, not worthy of attention. We may refuse to accept it because it isn't provable. It may feel like we're making something up or as if our imagination is running wild. Why? Why this struggle, this refusal to see or accept our own knowing as true? It certainly can lead us to revelation. Perhaps because until recently, and still in many places, our culture didn't take intuition seriously or recognize dreams or other embodied transpersonal experiences as providing valid, so-called valid information. When I worked in corporate America, I disguised my intuition as a gut feeling, a hunch, when I needed to explain why I chose a specific course of action. I knew if I described it as intuition, it would be immediately written off or mocked as women's intuition, something which had no currency in a patriarchal corporate setting in the 1990s. So how can we discover our own Torah, access our intuition, one of our most powerful tools? How can we unblock ourselves to receive divine or inner guidance, found in the visceral feelings, symbols, or synchronicities we often dismiss as coincidence? After all, aren't we working in concert with God, co-creating the world in every moment, even if we are often unaware of it? And even if we viewed our intuition as coming from our da'at, our deepest inner wisdom, are we wise to ignore it? Our intuition lights up the guideposts that shape and inform our lives. If I had ignored mine when I was a grad student, I would have left out a couple of very important points that did feel revelatory during my dissertation writing process. But I hung on to them, even though I had to call a colleague in one instance to ask, am I crazy to write about this as something new? And that was in reference to what for me was one of my most meaningful revelations. The idea that theology could be a research methodology, as it was in my own work. Another related theme this night is how does source flow through us? Gesher addressed that as well. I've learned that the wisdom of source, the flow of life, comes through us in tandem with the workings of our subconscious, as flashes of insight, memory, aha moments, personal revelations. For some, it works in concert with spirit guides, our spirit team, which speaks to them through symbolic dreams, meditation, prayer, and again, embodied experience. Intuition arises and moves through me, often as a felt sense, a physical sensation even. At other times, through messages in a dream, or as a nagging feeling that won't go away until I address it. One of the moments my intuition came through most strongly was in Jerusalem in 1999, at the Rockefeller Archaeological Museum Library. I was unable to give it sufficient language and for years could only describe it as a strong sense that felt like a bolt of lightning. And perhaps that was and is enough. But now I understand it also as a powerful intuitive hit, something I'd never been taught to look for. That hit, that flash of lightning ran through my entire body and flooded my brain and heart. Some would say I was in a state of high Shakti, life-affirming energy, as I read the report of an archaeological study of digs at Bet She'arim near Haifa. Bet She'arim, as many of you know, housed the High Court, the Sanhedrin, in the 2nd century. And centuries later, there were excavations of the town's burial caves where many rabbis are buried. And those excavations began in the 1930s and continued again in the 1950s. The report validated what I had been enacting, what I felt in my bones, in my kishkas for several years. My firm belief that the position of priestess, of Kohenet, was a role held not only by women related to a priest, but women to whom others turned for advice and counsel, who performed certain ceremonial, spiritual, healing, and life cycle rites and other tasks, and those who felt strongly called to the role. I knew about the caves after reading Bernadette Bruton's Women Leaders in the Ancient Synagogues, and went in search of a sarcophagus that had a menorah engraved on it, thought by many to be a symbol of our tree of life, and also a symbol of the goddess Asherah. The librarian pulled out one of 3 2-inch thick volumes and turned to a page that said, Kohenet, priestess. That could have referred to a priest's wife being buried in the tomb I wanted to find, but I felt it was connected to the symbol I was following and about much more than a literal translation. Both the librarian and my cousin Miriam vehemently shook their heads at my suggestion that a Kohenet could have been a woman trained for or called to the role, who wasn't related to an official temple priest. The lightning bolt was proof enough for me that I was onto something never being talked about in the 1990s in Jewish circles, or in the scholarship, with a few notable exceptions, Sabina Teubel, Raphael Patai, Asphodel Long, Bernadette Bruton, and others. For me, it was proof of what I and 2 other women had imagined and were already doing in the Bay Area, and likely what a few other women were doing in other parts of the world. We were performing many of the functions of a priestess in the mid to late 90s, and we agreed that in serving one's community, one was fulfilling the role of a priestess, and that women before us, centuries and millennia before us, must have been doing these same tasks. We were creating rituals around birth, death, marriage, and other life passages, teaching, writing liturgy and prayers, and actively working for positive social change to move past outdated, damaging paradigms. Intuition played a strong role, I believe, driving us to understand and name what we were doing as priestly, something especially challenging then as Jewish women. So how can we open ourselves to allow Source to flow through us more often? And how do we even know we're not receiving important messages that may await us? What if we're simply not paying attention, or we don't realize that we are all potential channels for wisdom, for spirit, for revelation, because we're always waiting for a vision, a larger aha moment, or because we don't feel we ever received or have permission to be that sort of conduit? There's no such thing as an intuition expert. We all have the capacity. It's just a question of trusting that ability and developing our access to it and claiming it. We too often privilege and so seek out only what we or the culture regards as more scientific or reliable sources of information. In so doing, we overlook what our bodies, our minds, our spirits are trying to tell us. Perhaps on this Shavuot, we can find new ways to open to the divine flow that informs, guides, and feeds us. Our mystical tradition teaches that each of us brings unique gifts into the world, and that all our gifts are needed to make the world whole. Our own Torah is enhanced and enriched by our intuition, making it one of the greatest spiritual gifts we possess. It is gold, waiting to be mined. I'll close with this quote from Maura Torkelson's book, The Inner Tree. To become aligned with your intuition, you must pay attention to your trunk and cultivate an awareness of the unseen realm of your roots. Remember that intuition is not something that comes to us from the outside, because there is no outside. Intuition arises from the deepest part of us, where our roots meet eternity, the origin of our being, and the home of the divine source of everything. Here, nothing ever changes. It is the heart of stillness and of infinite peace and love. My hope is that we can all develop greater trust in our own knowing, our own Torah, in the revelations we have within us that need to be acknowledged and shared, those we have had and those yet to come. I think that must be part of God's plan. Selah. Debarti. We move now to Reb Judith's teaching.
So I'm going to teach to the subject that I if God is within, is immanent in the world, God is within us, right? And we're part of creation. And there's an idea that we have a true self within us that is divine, isn't run by our childhood issues and the things that keep us from being our absolute true self. It's our kindness, it's courage, and it's deep inside us. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that keep us from acting or being aware of our true self or being fully in our true self. And I'm also a psychotherapist, so I'm aware of how our families of origin usually cause us to play down some part of ourselves or overdo some way of being. But that isn't our true self. In my family, there was safety in being somewhat invisible, but I'm actually kind of a noisy person. I mean, that's not my true self. So I want to do some exercises with you. I feel as though our true self, we always feel it, like it always is communicating with us. And I like to do some exercises with you that have to do with how you know if you're not acting from your true self, what the feeling is when you know you're not acting from your true self. for me, it's most common. I used to not act for my true self in order to try to be pleasant with the other person I was speaking with. I'm getting over that from my 6 years of marriage, where my husband loves it when I disagree and I'm absolutely authentic. But that was one of my ways of playing down my true self. So I'd like you to do that exercise of thinking of some time that you know you were not acting from your true self, that you knew you were not acting. So we'll take a few minutes for you to do that. And I'd like you to notice how you knew you were not acting from your true self, because that's a message from your true self, okay? Knowing that you were not acting from your true self. So now I'd like you to think of a time that you were acting from your true self. I'd like you to go there and be with that experience of absolutely acting from your true self, speaking from your true self. Now I'd like to invite us to do some sharing about what the experience was of that when you were speaking from your true self, if you feel like sharing with me. I have two. One is when I'm teaching the way I am right now, I'm really speaking from my true self. I really am. But also with my husband, when I disagree with him, I've learned to really come forward and speak my voice, my true voice. Anybody else? What were your experiences of speaking from your true self? Please unmute and share. You're not.
So when it's like almost like a feeling, oh, I missed, something is, how they say you missed the mark, like in Hebrew it says fisfasti, I missed it. Something is like, it's not going where I'm wanting it to go or where it should go, or I don't know. Something like that, a sense like that when I'm not speaking from my truth self.
Thank you. It's lovely. It's sort of like our longing, right, to connect with that. Then
Yeah.
we're right, then we're at the mark.
Yeah.
D'vorah.
When I left corporate America, that was definitely my true self. Yeah, and it was following the death of a second person close to me, and I suddenly felt like the walls of my office were closing in, and I had just had enough. I knew there was much more to life waiting for me on the other coast, on this coast. So yeah, disrupted my life in many good ways. Thanks.
Thank you. Lucky for us. Very lucky.
I can share just, I think, can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Oh, hi, everyone. Thank you for sharing, everyone. I think when I'm speaking from my true self, I have a feeling that it's kind of effortless. There's no struggle. It just comes naturally, and I'm not even aware, I don't have to, there's not a lot of thought involved. It just flows.
Yeah.
And when I'm not speaking from my true self, I'm hesitant. I'm questioning what I'm saying. There's a struggle.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what, there are these overlays, like we have to do it right, or, the things that aren't exactly our true self. But yeah, it flows, the real thing. Just there it is. Yeah. You had
For Judith,
yes.
Anne is raising her hand.
I'm calling on her, even even as you speak. And please speak.
Hi. Sometimes when I want to say something, it starts like a rumble inside my stomach and I get terrified. And I'm too scared to say it, but it's a wave. And if I ride the wave and get over the edge and just make myself do it, then it's almost as though I'm being carried to say it. It's not up to me anymore. And at the end of it, I just have a release, a feeling of relief. And I was at a funeral, a memorial service really some time ago, and I wanted to sing a song to the person who had passed. Whether they could hear me or not doesn't matter. But Rabbi at the time said, no, we're finished, closed. And I just jumped up and I said, no, I have to do this. And I pushed myself to do it. And I'm so glad that I did have the nerve, the courage to do it. And I think speaking from your true self, as you put it, just takes so much courage. And there must be an exercise, which perhaps Judith, that can make it easier to summon that courage.
Well, I thank you for bringing up how scary it can be, because our true self isn't going to make us safe particularly, right? It's just going to do some true thing, right? So I don't know that there's any exercise except courage itself, to go with it. Because if we're not being our true self, well, we can be nice, we can be socially right, and but the true self is going to take care of us, as you said, and it can be scary. But there, look where it carried you. Somewhere really, really wonderful.
And sometimes you're not heard when you're speaking to somebody else, and you have to get over that. You can't hold on to that. You said it, whatever it was. You have that feeling inside yourself that it's deep-seated. It really is who you are. Doesn't matter whether the other person heard you or not, in a way. I mean, yeah.
It hurts my feelings, but I guess you're right. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
I can't do anything about it. Yeah. I can't see your name, but
It's Lilith. Lilith.
Yeah, Lilith.
I was looking at Elizabeth, but you're not unmuted. So I'll go to Lilith first.
Okay.
Lilith, where are you?
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
There I am. Hi. Yes, well, thank you for this. Yes, so I guess, well, when Lilith came to me in a vision and told me, I was at a women's camp and told me to change my name to Lilith, and I woke up from this vision dream and said, "Who's Lilith?" and found out who she was. And it really helped me when I found out she was the first woman and too rebellious to stay with Adam and flew away, sprouted her wings and flew away. That's what, when I found my true self was really there. And I was like done with men. I was glad that I had been with them because I had 3 children with them before. But I was finished. And so I discovered my true self as Lilith, a lesbian poet, activist, and wonderful, just adventurer. Thank that's and it's been my path ever since for about 25 years now.
Thank you, Lilith, for your story. And that's the kind of thing D'vorah was describing, these kind of transcendent things that come that have an extra, I don't know what the word is, but thank you very much for your story.
Yeah, thank you. This has been wonderful. Wow.
Elizabeth, you must unmute yourself, however. Don't
I
forget
know.
to unmute. Oh,
Thank
good.
you. Hi, Judith.
Hi. I haven't seen you for a long time. Hi.
I just, when people were talking, not before that, I had the thought, there's schizophrenia. I have triple phrenia in a way, because when I'm not coming from wherever that's natural to me, I'm pushing too hard. I'm really trying to project a happy, except that underneath I'm happy too. But it's like I'm pushing that out to sort of protect myself, right? And then there's when I am relaxed and I'm happy and everything kind of flows and I can be very spontaneous and quick. But there's a third thing that happens, which actually terrifies me a little after the fact. I'll just tell you the first time it happened, and other times were like that. Imagine me, a new-fledged social worker in a huge amphitheater with other psychiatrists and all kinds of professionals, having just been hired, knowing nothing. And on the stage is this eminent psychiatrist presenting a case. And he has a woman in a nightgown sitting in a chair, and he's got a pointer in his hand. Oops, I'm getting upset just thinking about it again. And he's pointing to her, and he say, you will notice that the patient has no affect. And he lifts up her arm and drops it. And then he says, and you will notice the frozen expression on the patient's face. She's dressed in a nightgown, he's dressed in a suit. And what happened to me then is what's happening to me now, is having trouble breathing. And all of a sudden I was on my feet with no intention of getting on my feet. And I'm projecting as loud as I can to everyone, you will notice that the patient is a human being. And everybody went, oh, no. And I left in tears because I knew I was going to get fired the next day as soon as my psychiatrist, who was above me. And fortunately, he was Eastern European. He said, yeah, you're a very stubborn woman. I too am stubborn, so you okay. But that happens to me from time to time where I don't think I'm going to speak because it's going to be totally inappropriate. Everyone is going to stone me to death. And yet something bubbles out of me. And I swear to God, it's like something is taking over because I cannot speak the truth as I perceive it at that moment. So there are 3 levels at least. I don't know.
Oh,
I got myself all upset again.
thank you so much.
Just
Elizabeth.
remembering
Thank
that.
you that you did that. Thank you for your true self just bursting out of you. Thank you.
I see that Lisa Schalwitz is unmuted. Lisa, did you want to participate?
Sure.
And then-
Yeah, I
and then
wasn't sure
Anne.
if I was going to speak. Yeah, I also am a social worker therapist, and I recently took a CEU course that was actually in my car. I was listening to the CD that I still listen to. It was on The Wizard of Oz, with applied theories from Carl Jung as Dorothy grows and matures and transitions and everything. And I love this so much. And I run in my my work, I run in small groups. And so we ended up actually in the group watching not The Wizard of Oz, but The Wiz. It was really, we all loved it. But then afterwards, I really wanted to present the theories of Carl Jung to my group. And I did. And it was like something I had to do was share this information with the group. And, in the beginning, it did inspire a lot of discussion, but then it, kind of waned a little bit. But it just felt like something that I really needed to share with the group as a closure, is sharing with them these theories, which were great. And that was the closing group that we had.
So your true self can come out even in academic ways, right? Where you really just have to share this.
Yeah.
Part of it.
Yeah. It was so wonderful to me that, yeah.
Judith, Ann was next.
Anne, where are you?
I thought you had your hand up, Ann. No? Okay, sorry.
Okay. Adam, hi.
Hi, Reb Judith. It's good to see you and to teach and to study with you again.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. I just wanted to mark something you said that just so struck me when you were talking was I think this is what you said, and correct me if I misheard it, but the usefulness of not feeling that I'm speaking my truth, because that then guides me when I have that feeling. I go, that's my truth, is that feeling like I'm not speaking my truth. And if I can use that moment to go, oh, something feels uncomfortable, I can use that as a way to direct myself in speaking my truth, to be able to be aware, to be able to, if I can stay that aware when because I am not always going to be able to stay totally present with that truth. But I can, if I'm mindful of what's going on in my body and the feeling of discomfort, I can come back to that truth, or at least know that I'm not entirely living up to myself at that moment.
Yeah, I think that's just an increase in consciousness, right? To know the signs of when we're not speaking our truth, what that feels like, getting more aware of that. And I think it can help us move toward speaking our truth. Yeah, if it's safe in that situation. Masha, hi. Unmute.
What the fellow just said, Adam just said, really spoke to me. That there's a place of discomfort when you get out of your comfort zone, which is a real great learning area, and it doesn't feel so good, but it's actually the direction to go. And so it's not always comfortable to speak your truth. And like you were saying, Judith, you have to learn to recognize which is the discomfort of learning and which is the discomfort of I'm off base here. I'm not really in sync with myself. And that's learn, that's what we're here for. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice.
That's the Buddhist teacher aspect. Thank you. So is there anyone else who wants to comment or report or disagree or add? Well, so
I have to say something.
Yes, thank you.
Sometimes I don't have any idea that I have a truth to speak, but I also have the feeling that that I'm searching for a way to fit in.
I'm searching for a way to get agreement from people. And I feel an absence of myself because I'm trying to get other people to think of me or believe in me or see me. So then I can, it's like a bad piece of cake, you know, but it's there, you could eat it. And so I think, well, I can get very confused there. But also it is definitely a sign of the way it doesn't work. And it's also part of my responsibility to feel that's my part of being in a problem, because I had a problem person, wasn't getting along with her. I was very insulted by something that person said. And I spoke part of my truth and she didn't hear it. And then I felt I had to back away. I had to protect myself. So my truth didn't have an arena to go into because I closed it off. And that is what I did. I could have said my truth. I'm afraid that my truth will hurt people. And that is another thing. These are all ideas that present themselves as problems, you know, and then it's important to learn how to say what my truth is without attacking, without harming, so it's that inner self that is still learning to be a self rather than a fitter inner.
Thank you. That was so profound. You covered several things. I want to just talk about some more. One is that part of our real truth takes into account who we're speaking to, right? So that it's designed to go to them because we're speaking to them, right?
Yeah.
If possible, right? But you also talked about, I think the major reason we don't speak our truth is it doesn't feel emotionally safe in certain situations. And it isn't emotionally safe.
And it isn't.
Yeah.
So then what?
Well, then we don't do it. We stay safe because that's first. You know, survival is first. But it's good to know you're not doing it and to perhaps go home and think of what your truth really is in the situation where you couldn't express it. Does anybody have any other about that, about fear and adjusting to other people and what that all is about?
One,
Adam.
Adam, I was just going to say, just in relation to that, I mean, there's speaking our emotional truth, and there is knowing our emotional truth, and to know that a place isn't safe for our whole self is a really useful and one of the big things that hopefully we get to learn in this life, is to know when we're safe and when we're not, and to know when we can bring our whole selves forward and when we can't.
That was my sister calling.
Oh.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
So Judith, if it's okay with you, I think we could also bring it back to if there are any general questions about what you shared or what I shared, because I know I was speeding through mine, so I finished a bit early. We have a little extra time for
Are we out of time for?
No, we have 10 minutes.
We still have 10 minutes.
I was going to say something. I couldn't get my hand raised, though. I don't know why. I couldn't find it. I'm on a new computer. Well, I often feel that way, that it's unsafe for me to express what I feel like I'm put down a lot in different places. I don't know what's wrong with the camera either. So it's just not adjusted right.
Fine,
But
It's giving you a
I
lovely
often feel, pardon?
It's giving you kind of a lovely color scheme.
Yeah, it's pretty, but I don't know how to get it to be normal. I keep changing it all the time, but it's not getting to the right color. I'm going to get a different computer though, this one, so that I want it. So yeah, I often feel that way, that it doesn't feel safe to say what I think because I think it's not important, or I'm afraid other people will think it's not important.
as a psychotherapist, I would assume that you were treated that way in your family of origin, but I could be wrong.
Definitely. Yeah, I was the baby.
Yeah.
And I had a brother that was a bully. A bigger
There you
brother.
go. Yeah. Okay, so I lead for you that you find ways and times you can express your true self, like just right now. That was cool.
That's why I decided to do it, even though you were going to end it. Okay. Couldn't
Thank
get
you.
my hand up fast enough. I know how to do it. I just couldn't get it on there for some reason. I see
But-
where it is. Okay.
That's a really good example of courage because, you know, you fought off those fears and you spoke out. Good for you. Yes, true self.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Well, D'vorah, if this is the end of our presentation, we should sing our ending song.
Oh, yes, you do have your ending song. Yes, yes, sure.
Okay, this is we're ending a little bit early, which will be nice. You'll get a good break before the next presentations. And our ending song is by Shlomo Carlebach, and it's called Return Again. And if you know it, please unmute and sing with me as I sing it. And it's very simple. You might pick it up also if you don't know. Return again. Return again. Return to the ways of your soul. Return again. Return again. Return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born again. Born again.
Born again.
Return again.
Return
Again. Return to the land of your soul. Thank you all for being here and
Thank
participating.
you. I love that
Thank you so
song.
much.
Thank you all.
So inspiring.
Thank you, the two of you. That was so beautiful. I'm so grateful to just be in your presence and to absorb your teachings. We do have a longer break, an extra 7 minutes on top of the 10 that we're used to. So feel free to stay in this room and chat if you would like, or you can leave the room and go back to the main room. And this is also a good time to listen to your body for the truth of your body. Stretch, eat, rest, close your eyes, whatever you need to do at home. The next session, the choices are going to be in one room, Aftab Omer will be talking about how goodness reveals itself. And in the other room, Shoshana Firstman will talk about the archaeological slow reveal of the Hebrew goddess. So you can sit with those choices and see where you're drawn to be. And at a couple of minutes before the hour, we'll place you, if you're on a computer, you can choose your breakout room. If you're on a phone or an iPad, we will again ask you to put your choice in the chat, and our Zoom Shamashimot will put you in the right place.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, so lovely. Unmute everybody. Come on. Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a special time. Beautiful.
Really lovely.
Special time so much.
Oh,
Thank you. This was very good. Thank you.
special night. Thank you. Return again. Return.
You know, that's on an album by David Zeller too. It's on a, I have it on a tape.
Huh?
I don't know if the tape's any good. It was a cassette tape.
Hi, Rep Judith.
Hello. Hi. Hi, Susan.
I heard David Zeller sing that for the first time at Congregation Beth Ami. I think it must have been in the 80s or 90s
Yeah.
before he went to Jerusalem.
Yeah,